Welcome to Built Different, a podcast featuring teams, technology, and trendsetters who are changing the way that we build. I'm Grant Hagan.
And I'm Brian Vizzaretta.
And we welcome you to join a community obsessed with questioning the status quo,
creating cultures of innovation,
and equipping everyone with powerful tools to quite simply build different. Well, welcome back to the Built Different podcast. Joined with Brian Vizzaretta. I'm one of your hosts, Grant Hagan. I cannot believe we have finally made it all the way through season 2. This is so fun. Brian and I were thinking of a really cool way to end this season, and the idea came up of doing a reunion episode. One, we didn't even know how many people would be interested in coming back, but Brian, we had so many folks that we had to do 2 different episodes.
Yep, and it's just kind of awesome to see that many people in the same room, and especially because you listen to each episode individually, and just kind of seeing like everybody on the same Zoom was kind of more surreal, like especially because everyone's from a different company. So
yeah, it was just really fun. It was really cool to see everyone back. We had every episode accounted for, which was really just surreal. But we hope that you guys enjoy these 2 episodes, one this week and then one in a couple weeks. And then really one thing that we wanted to invite you guys into is our live stream. So the final thing that we're going to close out season 2 with is a LinkedIn live stream. And Brian and I have been really excited about this. One, to be able to connect with so many folks that have emailed us and reached out. And we just thought it'd be a really fun way to end the season on a high note, to really share really all the lessons learned that we have and really a lot of the themes that came through these different episodes. So that is going to be happening on July 13th, Thursday, July 13th. Circle that on your calendar. And look for more details on LinkedIn through the Built Different channel. We just get so excited to be able to reach out and engage with you guys who have been listening. And so, Brian, what gets you excited about that live stream that we're going to do here soon?
I guess, honestly, the biggest thing is the repeatability of a lot of questions that do get answered individual in emails, that just bringing everybody together to kind of like talk about different people's perspectives would kind of be nice. So.
Yeah, totally. July 13th, circled on your calendar, put it in your calendars. We get really excited. So without further ado, we are going to bring back part 1 of the reunion for season 2. We hope you guys are excited for this, and we will see you on part 2 coming up in a couple weeks. See you all soon. I would love to maybe just go around. I don't want to take the assumption that you guys know who you work for and what companies. So I apologize that we're 15, almost 20 minutes in, and you guys haven't introed and like got to meet each other. So Hamzah, I'll start with you. Just maybe a quick intro. I'll kind of work our way around so you don't have to interrupt each other. So Hamzah, start us off, buddy.
Yeah, Hamzah Shanbari, Director of Innovation at Haskell in Jacksonville, Florida.
Love it.
Todd Wyne, Chief Innovation Officer at Rogers O'Brien Construction out of Dallas, Texas.
All right, Miss Lauren.
Lauren Williams. I'm a regional application implementation manager for McCarthy Building Companies. Just moved from BDC to corporate IT.
And where are you located?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Perfect. Mr. Evan.
Hey guys, I'm Evan Riley with Skanska, with our emerging tech group in Durham, North Carolina. I know I'm relatively new to the room, but it's nice to meet some of you guys face to face. And I've been listening to the podcast at like 1.5 speed, so it's nice to hear you guys talk nice and slowly and calmly now.
Man, that's awesome. Love it. Mr. Trevor.
I'm Trevor Johnston. I'm the Director of Construction Technology at XL Construction, and we're in the Bay Area of California.
Love it. Mr. Nathan.
Yeah, Nathan Wood, Executive Director with the Construction Progress Coalition, normally in Denver, Colorado, but currently sweating down here in Austin, Texas.
It's starting to get warm in Texas. Mr. Anthony.
It is.
Anthony Hartke with Turner Construction. I'm the VDC manager for the Mid-North region, so Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana, and Detroit, Michigan.
Love it. And last but certainly not least, Mr. Daly up there, the original host that somehow convinced Brian and I to take this on.
Yeah, we said it's a good idea. It'll be fun. You guys should totally do it. No, you guys are way better at this than Chris and I, who consistently just showed up and sort of shot from the hip on conversations with customers. But yeah, hey guys, Matt Daly, GM of the AEC group over here at DroneDeploy, based in San Francisco.
We got some slack from some listeners sending us emails and LinkedIn messages that people don't know Brian and I's background. I won't go into it because we didn't really highlight it on any episode, but I'm in Dallas. I used to work at a general contractor here in town, long time construction site and DroneDeploy user, and somehow got bumped into Brian out of this whole thing, and people call us the stepbrothers on this team, which I don't know if I should like appeal to that or if that's not the right phrase, but it's been fun running it with him. And yeah, Mr. Brian.
I am Brian Mazzaretta. I live in New York City now, but originally from Boston, Massachusetts. Work for a general contractor out there in Lake Grant. Longtime user of both DroneDeploy and Instruction Site. So I kind of fell into this role, and interesting to see them both kind of work out together. So love it.
Well said. Well, like Brian said, we really do want to make it like collaborative and interrupt people, and we'll do some fun editing on the back end too. But I think what the like 2 or 3 questions, and I'll put these in the chat so you guys can think about some of them too. I'm curious if anyone wants to start, just this idea of what stood out from like some of these other episodes that you guys have listened to. Like Brian and I obviously took feverish notes, both during and then after, of kind of summarizing things. And we have kind of some themes that stood out, but, or if you want to take a stab at like what's happened since maybe your guys' episode, of like things that maybe you talked about that kind of stirred some things back within your own teams or your own company. And I kind of want to start it there to kind of see if anyone wanted to chime in and take some of those.
So last time we chatted, or the first time I met you guys, found out that my now new boss knows Grant. You guys are like high school buddies or something?
We go back a little bit.
Okay. And I went to Groundbreak. I was a VDC manager, and I hadn't been to Groundbreak, and I wanted to go. And after previously going to New Orleans like a month prior, I was sort of like, last conference of the season, I was just sort of over it all. And I walked into Groundbreak, and it was like the coolest thing ever. I loved the energy. I love the conversation. I'm a avid Procore user and enthusiast, just because I think it's great, and I like to break it, if that makes sense. I like to use it or flex it in ways that might be not traditional, because I value the data integrity and the process that is inherent within the platform. But so I'm there with my husband, who works for a different general contractor, a competing general contractor in St. Louis. And so he's the director of construction technology there. So I'm benefiting off of his VIP access to certain things. And I'm hanging out with, our CIO and directors and vice presidents and whatnot. And I actually had a little bit of an agenda at the time, because I needed to talk to one of our vice presidents and really just make a sell for something that I wanted, that I thought would benefit the company. And we ended up in a 1.5 hour long, nerdiest conversation you could possibly have about like data warehouses and integrated stuff and all this. And he was just like, you get this more than just normal people. I was like, well, I just am really passionate about it. And then I got approached about joining their team as they're restructuring IT, and they needed somebody to sort of oversee all the implementation. So how we deploy applications across the company, McCarthy, and how we touch base with our project teams and manage best practices and improve adoption and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, that sounds interesting. It's kind of what I do every day, just on a job site. And I come to find out that Ryan was like, well, yeah, we don't have any issues in Central Region because you kind of manage your own stuff. I was like, oh, okay. So I guess that's a good sort of testament to my skills. If I'm not bothering IT, that's probably a good thing. And anyway, so I get a message. I want to say it was either the night before or the morning of. It had to have been late. I think it was like later at night, the night before. And he's like, hey, do you want to do a podcast in the morning? I was like, sure, why not? And we're sitting next to each other. I haven't spoken more than, I don't know, a couple of words with Ryan before that. And we just had a great podcast. It turns out it was a job interview.
I think you're you guys clearly had some shared interest in a lot. It's funny to hear you say there wasn't a lot of issues in my region, and now you're probably doing more there that you anticipated. So that was just so funny when we released y'all's episode of like, oh, cool. Didn't think that would happen, and just cool to see how you guys have kind of continued to grow from that.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty interesting. Like right now, like the entire industry, has everybody seen like new job titles pop out? And like even at your own company, like, are you starting to think about? I mean, me personally, I never really saw the operational excellence role pop up as much as I have in the last couple of months. Like, are you guys thinking about new roles or titles at your organization, or have you seen something that you think is like particularly interesting to you?
I see Todd shaking his head over there. I mean, that was
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I
shout out
think
for
that
episode 1. If you haven't seen it, Todd pretty much blew up his whole org structure. And
I was gonna say, like, that was my passionate topic. So Brian, you're hitting the nerve for sure. I think that it goes back to, what got us here isn't going to get us there. I think that's what I said in episode 1. And I think that companies that aren't looking inward at the organization, they're missing the boat. Because really, to truly capitalize on a better way, and whether it be digital or some new process or material or hardware or whatever it is, I think that it's, a lot of these things are being handed to people in positions that they're not really empowered to really take it across the finish line or to even have success with it. So that's something we've been very focused on the last 2 years at RO, is kind of what do we need to, it goes back to Jim Collins' Good to Great. It starts with the people. It doesn't matter what you want to do. First, you got to align with who you want to do it. And that's where we've been putting a heavy focus. So we have 3 departments that didn't exist 15 months ago, just in the innovation group. Yeah.
I think your book count recommendation number is up to like 10 from your conversation. So
thanks,
the person who's navigating this career jungle, companies that don't feature only highlight linear growth really need to dive deep. My entire career, I started in the operations side, but I've kind of defined my own path, and most of the positions I've had didn't exist, or I've blended the lines, and I think that's the best opportunity to see your A players and really will help them feel fulfilled, but then also benefit for your company. I
agree with Todd and Lauren. I mean, we're seeing so many new kind of titles that pop up out of nowhere, right? So we've always hired schedulers, right? You get a scheduler, and he's a scheduler, or she's a scheduler, and that's what they do. But now we have scheduling operations manager, somebody that oversees how do we schedule, what tools do we use, how are we consistent across the organization. So there's stuff like that are always popping up, and it's not necessarily kind of just focused on the technology aspect. It's really a workflow process approach. And a lot of people, like, they come up to me saying is like, hey, you're the technology guy or innovation, right? Is the robot going to come and take my job? I'm like, no, the robot is going to allow for better jobs, for different job descriptions that we didn't even know existed, right? So it's just exciting to see the evolution of the industry.
Well said.
I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate first, and then I'll go back to the good side. So I think there's also, you got to consider that there's a push with the labor market being so tight, and we're trying to keep people. We don't want to lose our best talent. So there's always that risk of, you see the new titles. What does that title mean? Is it just a title we're throwing at somebody to make them think that they're special and we keep them around? Versus, is there a job description? Is there a purpose? Is there something that this title represents? I think we always have to make sure we're looking at that when we're looking at resumes, when we're looking at the industry, and so-and-so gets a new title of the chief widget officer of XYZ. Okay, great. What does that mean? So that's one, I'll say that's my devil's advocate approach. On the good side of the conversation, I agree with what Lauren said. I mean, when I started out, it was a field engineer, became a BIM coordinator when we first started talking about BIM, and then BIM evolved into VDC because we realized we were doing more than just clash detection and models. it was 4D scheduling, it was logistics planning, it was figuring out how to get air handlers in and out of the building on retrofits. So we started moving into this VDC world. Well, then that moved into photography and reality capture and laser scanners and drones. So we started having this reality capture piece that was under the umbrella of VDC. Then we're getting into Power BI and data and analytics just because we have the models and we're dealing with data in the models. And that started bleeding over into the operations side out in the field with Procore and integrating between different softwares. So now there's this concept of digital practice, which is kind of overarching above and beyond VDC or side-loaded replacing VDC. Then we have an innovation department that got stood up, started out thinking about, okay, how do we fix the day-to-day stuff, but then keeping our eye on the blue sky stuff, that long-term development, that 5 years out, 10 years out. What's our company going to look like in 30 years? What does construction look like in 50 years? And trying to stay ahead of that. And that's kind of where the innovation department is kind of moving towards. And there's a lot of, I'll say, quicksand, a lot of shifting sands, not quite sure what we're doing, why we're doing it, who's doing what. So I think right now there's a lot of alphabet soup that's all kind of settling out. And we're starting to really understand what these titles are, what these roles are that we created for a purpose, but they're morphing and changing and shifting and really starting to settle into the organization structure.
Yeah. And I think some interesting, I remember from your episode, Anthony, was like the timelines at which people work on technology. Like, it's not just technology as a whole, but like, and I think Todd, we talked about this too, is like, is this person, do they have a role that's defined within like the next 6 months and ready to implement now? Or is this a five-year play? And that's pretty awesome to see, like, technology is getting broken out that much, even within roles at a company. Daly, did you had something in there?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious, like, to your point, Anthony, like, what are the business needs that are driving these new roles? And what, I mean, I think that's kind of what you're saying is, we can create new roles and that's great. But it seems like we're in this moment where the construction industry is has been in this moment, I think, for a number of years now, where the organizations are needing to evolve quite a bit themselves, and therefore the talent and the roles and everything with it. So I'm just like kind of curious, what are the business needs you guys see that are driving that? Is it purely we're digitizing and transforming, and that's what's driving a lot of this? And what else is driving it?
I'll go. Sorry, I was physically raised my hand, not my emoji. I think it's so at the core, we are construction professionals. We are business. The way we make money is that we do buildings, we do construction, our revenue is based on what we put in the ground or what we build. However, everything that we do is process and management based. And so the more you can understand those processes and what makes them more efficient, and have people that can balance between the two universes. So like, having an operations background, I've been in the field, I've ran construction projects before, but I also have this knack for data and process. And I see what could be beautiful if you can merge the two together to achieve, like, not perfection, because it's always evolving, but you could make the data that you get, if you're maintaining or following the processes that are put in place, is a powerful tool. You can be better managers. You're just like a better decision maker, all that kind of stuff. And so ultimately, you're better construction managers or general contractors with all that. So if you have people that kind of understand, can respect, I get it that you're in the field and this is a pain in the butt. And the fact that I have to click 5 times versus 0 times is a challenge. But if you can get them on your side, understand the purpose behind it and why it's powerful, why it's necessary, and what is enabled because of it, then the better we'll all be. And then we'll change the status quo. And now what we'll launch ourselves into whatever comes the next 5 or 10 years from now.
I don't think there's tomorrow, one of the episodes from Andrew's Construction, we talked about like the history of technology, and we're like, And 7 years ago, we didn't even have an iPad, and which is like crazy to think, you know, and now we're talking about like job titles and kind of how that plays in. But
Used to fax meeting minutes.
Yeah, seriously.
not to date
And
ourselves
shout
here, but
and shout out on the data, Nathan Wood and
yeah, I was just gonna
Chara's
say,
episode.
Nathan, chime in here, buddy.
Spiciest episode award, I'd say.
Which side note, and then Nathan, I'm curious to your thoughts. One, we'll send you guys all the metrics of like how your post performed. It's actually really fascinating what posts performed differently. Anyway, Nathan, from your episode, we haven't had a chance to tell you this yet, but the quote with you and Chara talking about dashboards, somehow, don't know why, but on Instagram, it just like hit the algorithm reel and it got like 20,000 views in like 2 hours. We don't know why.
It went viral, yeah.
But anyway, just a fun kind of, and we'll send you guys some fun metrics for all your guys' stuff, but please chime in.
Man, I got to get back on Instagram, it sounds like. But no, I'm just hearing this conversation, it made me think of, it's actually called the digital transformation pyramid, if you want to Google the image, but there's essentially 3 stages of digitization, digitalization, and then that final digital transformation. And it fits perfectly with our industry because we're frustrated right now that we want dashboards, we want data. That's a digitization that, as I was saying, is essentially waste for the sake of getting data. Versus digitalization is everything Lauren and others are working on to, within your own environment, create efficiencies within a McCarthy, within your business environment. Digital transformation is that next level of integrated project delivery or kind of new alternative delivery models that do really maximize the whole and look at that systems level thinking. But I feel like so much of our conversations are so far from that, except that at the end we're like, oh man, if we only had that, that would seem to fix everything. But yet we don't spend our time figuring out why we're not doing those things like IPD and starting at square one.
So it's interesting you even say that. So on season 3, we got to interview Brooke and Larry from Skanska. And and even just like the consistency aspect of, Evan, when we asked you what your process was for standardizing a process or implementing a new technology, word for word, Brooke had the same exact answer. And they're based, it was like scary. So they're based in Oregon and Washington, and you were based in Raleigh, right? So like, at least with like creating those standard processes, are you guys just all media trained that well? Or is it truly like an internal process, would you say, is like pretty consistent? Because you see some of these larger companies, you know, some regions sometimes act like their own little world.
Wow. Well, no, I would say we work really closely together, you know, in all honesty. And, you know,
that's a media trained answer, but
we all played a part in, you know, crafting what that process is going to look like. And as it's, you know, evolved over the last year. So yeah, that's probably why we echoed each other.
I mean, that's an understatement, but way to be humble on that response. But it really was crazy because, I mean, Brian and I looked at each other and we're like, wait a second. Is Evan like in her ear, or like, is there an earpiece there that he's like feeding some? I don't know. It was just crazy. Anthony, what do you got?
Yeah. So speaking to the concept of digitization, digitalization, and digital transformation. I was on an AU panel last year, and it was along that concept. And one of the examples I give to people, and this also speaks back to Matt's question earlier about what's causing this explosion, basically. And it comes down to, you have construction companies who've been doing things with paper for years, and you move to these platforms now where ideally folks using, just for example, Procore, for example, and they want to put their forms in Procore. It's like, okay, well, let's build a form. Well, we just want to take this piece of paper that we made a PDF. That's our digitization. Now you want to take that PDF and you want to put that right in the Procore, but you're not doing anything with the data. It's not going anywhere. It's a dumb form. You fill it out and it sits in a folder like you put it in a file folder in a filing cabinet back in the day. So you got to get people to move from the concept of, okay, we're not just filling out paper electronically. We're now building our forms, building our data collection network and tools to harness that data in a structured way, so that then we can take that data and we can start using dashboards and analytics and looking at it. But then the next step is using that to inform our business processes moving forward. How do we not just look at the data, but use it to forecast, use it to make business decisions to make us better? And that's kind of where we're trying to push towards. And I think with more and more companies adopting with BIM becoming kind of standard practice along the way, with everybody moving on to the PM platforms, everybody's jumping on board to all these cloud-based systems, and now the systems are starting to talk to each other. It's allowing us to access the data, and we're starting to see the gaps. I think that's just kind of like that drop in the bucket that started the tidal wave across the industry.
Yeah, well said. And Brian and I asked this in quite a few episodes, and it feels fitting in this topic and here. And Trevor, I'm going to kind of single you out because I think in your episode, what I think just stood out and resonated not only on our team, but a lot of other folks was just like kind of the tech's responsibility, right? Like you focused a lot about just the CSM that you have and just the like value that comes from like the relationship that you have with a lot of your tech partners. But I'm kind of curious, and Trevor, if you want to take this one too, but like in this idea of data and where it can go and how it can talk with other platforms and just data interoperability, like what's the tech's, like what's our side's responsibility in some of that in kind of from your perspective?
You know, it's interesting. So after my episode, I was a little bit surprised at how many people reached out, especially on LinkedIn. My inbox just blew up of people saying, "Oh my gosh, I hadn't thought of it that way, or hadn't thought about our relationships like that, or hadn't thought of, gosh, you know what that really is." When I think about it, some of my best experiences with some of our tech partners is that CSM or the relationship we've built, and you know how that helps the process. So you know, if we talk about as we're growing and need to adopt tech, or you know just have this digital transformation, I think it's really you know something that all of us need to be proactive in, that reaching out. You said, how can you be a better partner? Well, really what I need is for you to be able to work with some of my other partners, right? I need better solutions from multiple different angles, right? So instead of, you know, in this example, I use Procore, we all go to Procore and there's all this stuff in Procore. Well, what about outside of Procore? Let's say I'm using DroneDeploy, Instruction Site, whatever. What other platforms am I using that maybe there'd be this bridge between, or this link between, that would make both of them a stronger resource for me, or a stronger tool, and can offer me more deliverables or enhanced deliverables, right? So how can we start these conversations? And actually, Matt and I just spoke about this kind of a little bit recently of, you know, what are some of the other companies we're working with? And is there an opportunity for maybe some of your expertise to bleed into what they're doing, or this cross-pollination to get mutual benefit for both parties, and then me as the consumer of those, right?
Yeah, well said. So fun here, and just people that reached out. I personally enjoyed that conversation too, of just like, I don't know, I think it, to be honest, it kind of caught a lot of you guys off guard when we asked those questions of like, hey, like what's our responsibility? Obviously we're here to, you know, kind of extract your guys' stories, but some of those answers were really interesting. And honestly, the folks that we've shared this with internally that, you know, listen and, you know, kind of, and it's just really cool to hear how your guys' voice weighs a lot in our team internally, and hopefully other teams and other tech partners that are listening too, of like, hey, it's not just us expecting and putting all this stuff on the industry. It's like, hey, we have a lot of parts to play. And Nathan, I know that's what you're pushing for a lot with, you know, bringing people that comes to, you know, your event, and just the things that you guys are pushing too. But any other thoughts to that from folk, anyone?
I know we're going through exercises right now with a lot of our partners, pushing for let's say corporate agreements to kind of get access to software. But I'll say the openness, the integrations that are starting to take shape. So when we first started out down the path of Instruction Site and DroneDeploy and whatnot, it's like you had ecosystems, and they're all these ponds in that were not connected. And now with APIs opening up, becoming kind of standard practice, and either building those API connections internally or partnering with the vendors themselves, i.e. DroneDeploy, to start looking at how we can leverage what we're doing and have that information feed somewhere else. I think for the industry in general, I think the API development, we're construction companies. If you're not big, or you don't have some whip smart person who took some coding courses back in college, the average construction company is not going to be able to do that by themselves. Yeah. So leveraging the companies that are developing these softwares to talk amongst each others. Yeah, there's competitors. Yeah, there's that whole market advantage. But at the end of the day, the customers need our data to talk. So rather than putting it in our laps to make your system talk to others, being proactive across the industry to pick your, I'll say, preferred software partners. They're different companies to make the integration work, make it easier for us to operate in that environment. That makes us want to gravitate towards those platforms more, because less effort on us, on the GC, on the subcontractor, to make it happen ourselves.
And I think it's worth taking a moment to acknowledge and sort of celebrate that fact that, yeah, 5-10 years ago, the conversation was, oh, well, Autodesk isn't want to talk to Procore, isn't going to want to talk to whoever. And we kind of expected that. And you still hear that from people sometimes, but we all know inside our circles that that's a thing of the past. Like, and thank you to Procore, thank you to Construction Site, and early, those, and DroneDeploy is one of the first apps on the Procore ad marketplace, and to kind of see where that's grown. But yeah, we're kind of hitting this point where, back to that pyramid, certain apps on the API on the app marketplace you can use within your own company. We'll call it an internal integration, and you can work on digitalization efforts that way. But you're never going to really reach that digital transformation until you're using things like that Procore Nuforma connector that's actually connecting an RFI between a GC and an architect that's going external between project stakeholders. And then I think we can really reach something special. So it's cool to see that we've hit that mark, and it's really should just be the beginning of hitting the ground running and getting the industry to understand those nuanced differences when it comes to not just do you have an API or not, but what are those capabilities, and do I even know what I want to do with it as a customer? Those are some big questions. And I see Todd looking up in the air, and I want to hear what he has to think. has to say about it.
What's interesting is, like, I got to go back. One thing Anthony said that's real interesting to me is, like, we're builders, right? Like, we're not app developers. We're not the software developers. And traditionally, I 100% agree with that. And I traditionally always would think that, we shouldn't be hiring the developers internally in our company to map these APIs, creating our own systems of connection. But the thing that's changed my mind on that is AI. I mean, the other day I was able to create a script in 10 minutes that would have taken a full stack developer probably half a day, to go read the API documentation of Procore, to go read the API documentation of Office 365. What's crazy now is you can hire 1 or 2 full stack developers at your construction company, and you can actually have them empowered to operate as a software engineering department of 8 or 12. So I actually am starting to evolve my mindset and look towards, really what I want from the partners is just well-documented APIs. I need those to be very well documented so that I can go crawl the documentation and create the script that I need for my specific workflow.
Yeah, and I mean,
jumping off of that,
go ahead. You go ahead first.
Jumping off of that, not only the API, because that's definitely something we need, and I get where Todd's coming from, where hiring 1 or 2 developers internally can supercharge our efforts. But when you're talking about a 15-person small contractor, that's totally. While the biggest volume of work is happening with the biggest contractors, biggest subcontractors, looking at quantity of headcount, there are more people in the small contractor world than the big contractor world as a whole. And so,
talk about the trades even.
Yeah,
even
so
more.
we've got to bring them along. That rising tide raised all ship. I think I mentioned that in the
that was mentioned in 4 episodes.
There you go. But also to Todd's point, so not just AI documentation, but software documentation. We're moving from this industry time frame where you buy a software and you use that software in the same state for 5-10 years. And now we're using cloud platform software as a service, and there's new features rolling out monthly, weekly. Things are changing. Our projects are still typically in that 1 year, 3 year, 5 year time scale. So by the time our people who are experts with the software roll off their project to the next project, that interface could have changed completely on the next build, the next project. So having a robust, online, easy to digest and use kind of training program, reference materials is so crucial. So our folks can get spun up quickly, because a lot of times we rely on these super users like myself. Well, I can only train so many folks, and even I get out of date with the information. So having that easy to reference, bite-sized, as you need it information is crucial.
So do you guys not have any like business analysts that are are over or in charge of those vendors that are staying in touch with their roadmap or the changes, their business plan, et cetera, and how that's going to affect the company so that they can communicate it to the masses or a team that is responsible for implementing those changes? Or
We do for the companies, the platforms that we have corporate agreements with.
yeah.
But being a 5,000 plus company, person company, and projects will use whatever they need to use to satisfy whatever the client demands. So we can't service to that level everything that we use. So we pick our battle, we pick the key pieces and try to stay engaged. It's just so much that is hard.
Yeah, well said. Hamzah, you had your hand raised. Fire away, buddy.
Yeah, I would totally agree with Todd, especially. You know, I used to say we're not a technology company, right? And then now I'm changing it to we're not a technology company yet, just because there is so much happening, and we've seen some precedents too. So like AE Core, they used to be called X3 Builders, Ernest Electrical Trade Partner, that they are starting from the ground up as a technology company. So they start with the technology first, they figure out that part, and then they build the company around it to become builders. So we're now my mindset is like, we need to become a technology company before a technology company takes my place.
Once DroneDeploy learns to self-perform concrete, you guys better watch out.
Totally counter. There's like Casey and his team at X3, now AE Core.
Yeah.
And coming, and then there's like Katera, right? Then there's like the massive explosion in the sky of Katera of technology companies. I feel like the idea that construction needs to become technology was completely set back 10 years by Katera. And so like that would be the proof point for why you don't need to be a vertically integrated technology business, is because they exploded. But I do really like what AE Core / KC and those guys, Anthony, are doing.
Guys, this is so fun. I think the best part is seeing your guys' reactions to other people's comments. No joke. Like I could probably sit back here and just the head nods and the smiles and the plus ones. Honestly, that's what this is all about. It's so cool to be able to bring you guys all into the same circle and same conversation. And we hope it's one of many. I mean, obviously, we hope you guys, stay connected, and we'll find fun ways on our side to still stay connected to meetups at conferences and get-togethers too. But thank y'all so much. This is incredibly fun, incredibly insightful, and honestly, just super humbling. Brian said it earlier, the money in this room is a little bit absurd, and we were probably on the lower end of that. And we appreciate that you guys gave so much of your time just to help educate, encourage others, spur others on to, connect with each other. And I usually don't like to have the last say. Brian, any thoughts that you want to add and wrap us up here?
I just want to say, like, the Built Different has become larger than a podcast, and it's organically becoming our community and spun out of the emails and even people reaching out to each of you, and just any of those stories that you can always get back to us. We love to hear those. And, we're working on something right now in the background. I kind of like really make sure we have we keep that community extremely true to what the mission is. And I just look forward to kind of just continuing these conversations and bringing people like you guys together.
Thank you guys again so much. I'm 1 minute over, and I don't send me a bill for 1 minute of y'all's time. I know that would still outweigh us here. But seriously, thank you guys so much. Look forward to staying connected. And please share if you guys have, folks that, like Brian said, if you have stories and things that came up, we love hearing that stuff. We don't hear it often enough, but we love hearing that, and it just keeps us motivated to do some stuff too. So
the last challenge I'll leave everyone here with is check out an episode that you may not have necessarily listened to of somebody else in this group or one of the other groups, and just reach out to them and just have a convo. Like, if people aren't in this group or not connecting and talking to each other, then we have failed at kind of what the reason what the podcast was for. So make a new friend if you haven't talked to someone, and just connect and share some stories and good times. So thank you, everybody.
Thanks, you guys.
All right. Thanks, team. Have a great rest of your week. Look forward to seeing you guys in person again soon.
Make sure to subscribe to Built Different on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere you listen to podcasts. Let's build this community together.